I'd like to call this evening's regular board meeting for the Kings Local Schools Board of Education to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skirl,
Here.
Mr. Belfrom.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. First on our agenda tonight are the reports and presentations. I'll hand it over to Mr. Sears.
Yes, thank you, President Belfrom, Board of Education. Thank you for your flexibility for everyone for moving our board meeting to this evening. We had some board and administration life events happening over the last couple of weeks. It was, we appreciate your flexibility on an odd night to make an effort to have the meeting this evening. Two presentations tonight, one from predominantly myself, and then the second one will be predominantly from Mr. Morrow. Last week, we communicated information to our community about our capacity and building utilization information that was presented to us throughout this summer. So as a reminder to our board and our community that Mr. Matthew Cropper from Cropper GIS was here last May to present some information around some capacity work that he has done throughout the district. And then he came later in the summer in early August to complete his work around the utilization forecast that was created for Kings. What's interesting about the work that Mr. Cropper did and was very beneficial was him actually being on site, talking with our administration, seeing how we're actually using the spaces that we're using. The information that we shared last week was based on current data. And I think that was something that was stressed throughout the presentations. Both presentations Mr. Cropper gave is the information is around current data, the current experience we have within our district. Oftentimes there can be question around future or forecasting or what that looks like futuristically based on various circumstances. But the reality of it is, and he pointed out significantly the challenges that we have within our district right now. And so the information that we shared are facts based on the presentation and drawn directly from the presentation that Mr. Cropper gave. The fact sheet that you see here will be utilized throughout our district this fall as we begin communication, not only with our staff, but in our community as well around some of the building utilizations. So some of the highlights as this tells a story. This style we've used in the past for various other fact sheets, but it tells a little bit of a story. If you look at the box on the top left, this is our current building utilization rates. 100 is completely at capacity. And what that designates is Kings High School is currently today operating at approximately 134% capacity. CIS 124% capacity, JF Burns 111%, SLE 111%, the junior high 108%, and KME at 91%. So what that designates is 5 of our 6 primary buildings are currently working at over 105% capacity. That's a significant number, especially with our high school right now at 134% of capacity. That puts our high school approximately 400 students over what the building is designed to hold, which is a challenge for not only our administrators and teachers to operate each day, but this isn't just classroom space that becomes a challenge, but it's also, as Mr. Cropper pointed out, that the core spaces, cafeteria space, gym space, auditorium space, all of those are under capacity, what we currently need to house the number of students we have today at Kings High School. The challenges we see and the reason we're pointing out Kings High School is, as we note, 5 of our 6 buildings are over capacity. That 134% is significant because if you look at our current enrollment, there are more students in grades 1 through 6 than there are in grades 7 through 12 currently today. As those groups kind of trend forward and navigate through our school experience, we would anticipate, and Mr. Cropper identified this as well, without even additional growth within our district, our high school will continue to gain the number of overcapacity, overcrowding will only continue to grow. I'll note that our 2 smallest classes throughout our entire district right now are our juniors and our seniors. So as those students navigate out, this number will continue to rise and just create more challenge throughout our district. We've had to tackle some of the overcapacity, overcrowding issues previously by adding, an example is adding modular units to the temporary trailers to JF Burns that have been there to accommodate that. We've also noted on the fact sheet these are factual information on some of the impact that is having in our district as a result of the overcrowding. The first one is the financial strain to convert non-instructional spaces to substandard instructional spaces and to maintain the temporary trailers. In order to accommodate the number of students we have, we are routinely having to convert spaces that are not designed for classroom space or small group space or office space. We're having to convert those rooms into other spaces where our kids can use. The example is this summer, Mr. Lucky worked with JF Burns to create small group rooms in the multi-purpose room at JF Burns. That's the room when you walk right in the main office, off to the left, that is oftentimes used as another gymnasium, potentially cafeteria space, after school activity space, lots of different things throughout the day. The way they're using that is now office space and small group rooms. So the folks that are at JF Burns have seen this in action as we've done that. We've also identified a few other key places right now that we're using: stages, media centers, hallways for teacher workrooms, and one that is pointed out routinely is that currently the lobby or foyer of King's Junior High is a Spanish class that we're using all day long. It was not designed as a classroom space. We've had to convert that into a space that allows our kids to be there. Another point that we make is there's lack of adequate parking at Kings High School and across the entire district. If there's an event at one of our schools, there is not enough parking to accommodate. We see it routinely across the street at KME. The grass field becomes a parking lot because there's not adequate parking. And we also experienced this as we navigated our smallest 2 classes back to Kings High School this year, is that our juniors and seniors, the competition that takes place for parking passes. Only 40% of our junior class was able to acquire a parking pass for this school year. So you can expect, as 330 students graduate of seniors, and there's currently 390 sophomores, there's a difference of 60 students that is going to become even more challenge for parking as we move forward. These are present day challenges that we have. These aren't futuristic. This is present day. The other couple pieces I'll just quickly go through is our cafeteria space. Our principals are having to add lunches. We highlighted 3 of those there where, for example, JF Burns, we're starting lunch. We had to add 5 lunches because our lunchroom currently does not hold enough students to do it any other way. That we start lunch at 10:35 and we end lunch at 1:25 for our students. Columbia Intermediate, 4 lunches starting at 11:10. School starts at 9:15 at Columbia. Within 2 hours there, we have groups of kids going into the lunchroom and they end at 1:25. And then the high school's similar concerns of the number of lunches that we have. That's an example of our core space is not built to hold the number of students that we have. And then a couple pieces is adequate space, our gym space. We can, in our current Kings High School gym, we cannot house our entire student body. And if you've been to a basketball game recently, and our teams have been very successful, which draws a crowd, there is very little, oftentimes very little space to even find a seat. Mr. Taylor at our athletic department is having to look at doing multiple youth nights this year because we cannot accommodate the youth nights that we have. So we're having to spread that out throughout the year. And same thing with our auditorium. It's often very crowded. On opening day, our entire district staff barely fit within the current setting that we have, and only one of our grade levels can actually fit in that space during the day. So future impact, we're seeing growth. We will need to add additional classroom space at Columbia next year. Currently, the number of homerooms that are in third grade or fourth grade, exceed the number of rooms that are in fifth grade. When those students come next year, we will have to create classroom space in Columbia. It will have to happen. We're working on what that plan looks like. So we're either going to have to convert space that's not designed for that, or going to have to look at other options. That will happen. We're going to continue to see, as we're squeezed, some potential class size increases that may also impact how and when and what we deliver for elective offerings. So I share all this. Wanted to overview this tonight. This will continue to be talking points for us as we have data to support some of the things that we've been feeling and some of the pressure points that we've had. Over the coming weeks, we will be engaging our community in ways to alleviate some of these pain points in some potential options. So wanted to go through this evening. On the back of the fact sheet, we have also linked in, and when we meet with folks, we have the entire utilization forecast. So you can see the data that was developed and utilized from Cropper. So this is a front and back. I know as a board, you have seen this, you've gone through this, and I'm not going to spend significant time here, but you can see anywhere on this chart that there's a red or a maroon color that is over 105% capacity. And so there's the data, and you can see the trends, assuming some growth. There are some trends moving forward, but I will stop there. But I just wanted to go through this evening. Happy to answer any board questions, but we will continue to communicate this throughout our district. We have meetings set up with staffs and PTOs, et cetera. So.
Mr. Sears, should we, as a board, vote on this, as this is the capacity utilization fact sheet, so that we all know that when we're out, that this is a sheet that we've all seen, we've discussed over the last 3 board meetings and then earlier in the year?
If the board would like to endorse this as talking points for us throughout the district, I think that's appropriate. So whether we want to do a formal board approval or if the board endorses that, I think we can look at that either way.
I think we should, because they are actual numbers. They're not forecasted numbers. So I'm completely comfortable using that.
I am as well. I do have a question on this sheet real quick. If someone in the community were to get this and scan the QR code, where would that take them?
Yeah, great point. So the QR code at the top right will take you to our district website. On our district website, under resources, we have a King's Facilities information page. On that page, you will see our board presentations, the board presentations for Matthew Cropper. You will see the recordings of that. You will see the PowerPoints of that, and the utilization forecast. So, if anybody wants to dive deeper, this is a quick snapshot summarizing Mr. Cropper's information. But if you want to dive deeper, all of that information is on the under resources King's Facilities information page. So the QR will take people directly there.
And I also agree that we should endorse the data. But we can discuss that. We want to formally vote on it in September. Is there more questions, for Mr. Sears? Mr. Morrow?
Okay,
No, I meant,
you ready for me?
yeah.
All right. Oh, thank you. So next on the agenda is some efficiencies and revenue generation that the district has achieved in roughly the last 12 months. One of the questions that Mr. Sears and I, and I'm sure some of the board get as well, is, so what have you done? You passed a levy last year. What are you doing internally to extend the life or to make the district more lean? So we wanted to give a snapshot to the board and talk through some of the highlights of the kind of bigger picture items that we've spent significant amounts of time on to make the district more efficient and more cost effective. So if Don, you could pull that up under cost savings and revenue generation. Thank you. You can go to the next page. So we've kind of kept track over the last year of what have we done? Because it's one of those things that might get asked at any given time by any given person. So trying to kind of keep track of it and keep a tally of things the district's been able to accomplish. Right off the bat, I'll walk through these. Board, please interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. So first off, hiring practices. Our principals and HR department do an excellent job of achieving two goals when they're hiring new staff. One, they look for fantastic staff, of course, but they also try not to break the bank when we're replacing individuals. So this year we had 24 teachers. And when we take those 24 teachers that left and were replaced, we're going to save nearly $600,000 in salaries and benefits that we were paying to the old staff that we're no longer paying to the new. And that's from hiring practices of hiring staff members with less experience. And as I said, it's a fantastic staff with a lower cost than the people that they're replacing in most cases. Budgeted savings, staffing. You'll see this is a zero. But we're still proud of the zero in that we budgeted for 5 additional teachers this year. We're gaining kids, we're gaining students that need services, and we were still able to not break the bank. We evaluated every position as far as somebody leaving. How can we still operate and be a high performing district and change what we do to not replace that person perhaps? So within that, we were able to stay to the five budgeted teaching staff members, and that includes adding 4 for English as a second language. You guys, and we heard a lot last year how that was a pain point at the district, and by all accounts, it's gotten worse. So even with adding those supports, we were still able to stay at a net zero, which is something we're proud of the work we did there. Building budgets, as the district and board has made tough decisions to be more lean and more efficient in what we do. We've also asked our primary buildings to do the same thing. So we've asked each of the primary buildings to take a 5% budget reduction this year compared to last. And if you remember back to last year, they were flat last year. So our buildings are finding ways to operate in a world of rising inflation, and we're taking money from them that they can use on a day-to-day basis. So I'm happy to be able to work with them and them to accomplish the goal of operating within a reduced budget. Personnel savings plan. We currently have 8 staff members that took advantage of this. And if you remember, this is where that staff member retires and we rehire them at a lower cost. And to reiterate the point Mr. Spinner always makes when we talk about this, these are staff members that they were going to be here anyway. So this is just a way for them to take advantage of their retirement, and the district also save money. So we think this has been a huge win for us and for the staff members, one of a great win-win for those 8. And that year, or this year, will generate $304,000 in savings from those 8 staff members. And that's a year-over-year savings as long as they're still with us. Tax incentive agreement review. One of the items I tackled since I've been here is to go through all of the agreements we have with municipalities, Lebanon, South Lebanon, Mason, and check, are we and are they fulfilling the obligations of those agreements? I was able to find one where the entity was not fulfilling their obligations. So we instantly got a $205,000 check that's due to be paid to us in January for back payments that have been missed for years. And also we see approximately $18,000 a year in additional revenue that we weren't getting before but should have been. It's a pretty big deal. It's a big chunk of money for just doing our due diligence and making sure that everybody's operating as they should be. Utility purchasing. Mr. Lucky and I worked up through, I think it was New Year's Eve on this last year to lock in the best rates possible. So we work with a consulting group to buy energy, essentially. We spend over $500,000 a year in electric alone. So we work with this company and these experts to make sure, or try to make sure, that we're locking in rates that are going to beat what current rates are at Duke. So we're seeing rates 26% less than what the average person is paying in our area. That generates nearly $150,000 of savings this year.
Is that school-based that you buy those rates at, or is that like county-based? Like
School-based.
school-based, okay.
These are our own individual agreements.
Okay.
So at certain times when your contracts are up, you can basically just buy all the electric that you're going to need for the next 5 years. And then they space it out and bill you monthly, just like anybody else, but you're locked in that rate that you agreed to. So you don't see the fluctuations that that homeowners do. Yes, exactly. Granted, we did see an increase this year, but
Yeah.
we were able to shelter ourselves from seeing as big as increases as families are seeing.
Big.
Health insurance, this is a big number, nearly $2 million. Almost $1.4 million of that is from an initiative where we're paying staff members to not be on our insurance. So the company that we contract with keeps track of, was this individual, were they going to take coverage through King's? Yes or no? And then here's what we're paying them. So we take all those families and all those individuals and they net out to what does this number look like over 12 months? And with all the costs associated with it, we're saving nearly $1.4 million every year. And this is a number that's continuing to rise. The word's out here that it's a great benefit to our staff, and it's a great benefit to the district also. The remaining piece of that savings is we received an excellent health insurance renewal this year. We spend over $6 million on insurance. We saw a negative 1%, which is pretty wild, all things considered, with the world of inflation and rising costs. So we're going to realize a minus 1% in premium, which is great. So I compared that to what we would have spent if we would have got a market increase, which is 8%. And that's going to save the district alone. This isn't even staff members save, and the district ourselves also save nearly $500,000 just from that. So we're really proud of the health insurance initiative that the district continues to work really hard on to make sure we're in the best position possible to give our staff good benefits, but also not break the bank.
And we also have a health committee, so it's the entire committee that works together with you, correct?
That is correct. So that committee is made up of myself, HR, and both unions. So we all have to come together based on union agreements to do what's best for our staff and the district. So I give a ton of kudos to them because they initiated these programs prior to me coming, and we just keep kind of forging ahead with them. So a lot of kudos to our HR and our unions. Three-tier transportation. The board approved earlier in the year to switch the way we transport our students and school start times. We're estimating that's going to save about $150,000. And I will add to that point, and feel free to jump in, Mr. Lucky, if you'd like, but that has no bearing on the start of school and any issues that any families are having. The three-tier didn't cause any issues. Okay, good. State funding advocacy. This is another one that Mr. Sears, myself, and a couple of the board members who took part in this committee. We worked with community members to advocate for our school. So we found 2 points that we pushed our local legislators to get approved in the state budget bill, and both were approved, and both signed into law. So we're estimating anywhere from 1.1 to 1.3 million in additional revenue for the district over the next 2 years. And it's a big deal for us because typically when there's changes at the state level, it doesn't impact districts in the like us. So we were able to navigate that and find platforms that we could get behind that benefited essentially all districts across Ohio, and we just got to take part in that. So it was kind of a difficult navigation, but we're happy with the results. And another revenue generation. We talked a lot about preschool last fall and how costly it was to be able to offer that and offer the wraparound services for our kids. So the board did approve an increase in the tuition for our preschool, which is excellent, and the child care that comes along with that. And we estimate that this coming year will generate an additional $165,000 in new revenue for charging for those services. So this is just kind of big picture, big items that we've spent substantial time on in the past roughly year. And we wanted to make sure to point it out to the board and to our community that we're working on this, and we're not stopping. We talk about it every day, essentially. So it's nice to see some of the fruits of everything that we've worked so hard on.
Awesome.
Is that state funding advocacy? Is that the annual amount, or is that the amount over the 3 years? 3 or 4
It's
years?
over the 2 years.
2 years. Okay,
Correct.
that's what I thought. I was.
Good clarification.
Any questions for Mr. Morrow?
This might just be a question of semantics, but what's the difference between the red font and the green font?
Green is revenue generation and red is cost savings,
Got it. Okay.
just to kind of differentiate the two.
All right, next on the agenda is public participation. Let's take a look here. The King's Local Board of Education encourages all parents, staff members, and community members to attend meetings and encourages visitors to participate in their meetings. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to state his or her reason for addressing the board. We ask the speakers avoid personal attacks on individuals during their public address to the board. If an individual has an issue with an employee, we ask that you request a private meeting with the superintendent or that employee's direct supervisor. Please keep in mind that Board of Education meetings are held so that the board can conduct their business in public. The board president is the spokesman for the board and may need to consult with other board members in order to respond to the public. If a question from the public can be answered immediately, it may be. However, if time is needed to study the issue, the board may choose to make a statement at a later date. And with that, First speaker is Heather Schultz. Heather, did I pronounce it right? I always.
Yep, Schultz.
Sure. Okay.
No Z, Schultz. All right. Good evening. My name is Heather Schultz, as we just said. I'm a parent of a class of 21 grad and a current sophomore who will be a 26 grad and a 24-year resident in the district. It's been a pleasure, a real pleasure for me to attend most of our school board meetings in person over the last 9 months or so. And I have very much appreciated the thoughtful, the structured approaches that the board and the administration have had and have been taking to the many challenges that the school district faces. At the last working session, which we just heard some about, I listened very intently to the presentation on school building capacity and utilization, and the data resonated with me because it's what I've seen firsthand. And data alone cannot paint the picture. So last week, my husband and I attended the high school open house. And one classroom in particular stuck out to us. Our daughter has English with the same teacher her brother had 5 years ago in the same classroom. And 5 years ago, her brother was asked not to bring his backpack in the classroom because there physically was not space for it. He had to keep it in the hallway. So that was also the year that he had a locker on a main hallway. And with the overcrowding in the hallways, he did not feel that he could actually interrupt the flow of traffic to open his locker in between classes. This meant he kept everything for the entire day in his backpack, which he then kept in a hallway. So when we got there on Tuesday last week, we were very glad to see that the classroom has been outfitted with new desks since he had that class. And that allows the students to safely store their backpacks under their desks at their feet. That seems like a great solution, a nice little win, right? Except as we were going home, all I could think about was the even larger graduating classes that are coming after my daughter's class. Her brother's class tended to be in the 330 to 340 range. I think they graduated 318. Thank you, COVID. Her class has been ranging in the 380 to 390 range. And when I looked today, 4 of the 10 graduating classes after hers are larger than hers. So this problem isn't unique to one high school classroom in one building, but we clearly can't sit on our hands and hope that space will magically appear throughout the district. And so even if a permanent solution won't be available in time to help my daughter, I owe it to my neighbors, my friends, I have coworkers in the district, community members. I owe it to them to help make sure that our students have an appropriate learning environment where they can focus on learning and where they're not distracted by the crowding. So I wanted to thank you for your diligence and your persistence in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the only participant I had. Did you?
I'm just
speak
curious
this?
if they're,
Okay.
I live in the district and have students at KME and CIS, but I'm here as a visitor.
All right, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you. And with that, next on the agenda, the consent agenda are the approval items for the treasurer, the financial items, the minutes for the last 2 regular meetings, the special meeting and public hearing, TIF refunding, the annual commercial paper reporting, and the public records law. Mr. Morrow, did you have anything to add?
I do not.
Did anyone have any questions regarding the items for the treasurer this evening? All right, Mr. Morrow, could you call the roll, please?
Motion.
Oh, excuse me. May I have a motion to approve the items from the treasurer? It's been a long day.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Morrow. Oh,
I will second the motion.
Mr. Morrow, could you now that I got my act together, please call the roll?
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. Next on the consent agenda are the approval items for the superintendent. Looks like we have the field trips for the high school band and the annual DC trip for the junior high students. Mr. Sears, did you have anything to add here, sir?
I do not.
Right? May I have a motion to approve this item for the superintendent?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
I
Next,
see we are back to a fall Washington DC trip.
yes, yes,
So hope those
Exciting.
kids have a good time
I hope so.
and a lot less busier.
Yes, for sure. Next on the agenda, the consent agenda are the items for the assistant superintendent regarding HR and business. We have the personnel items, the King's Education Association Agreement, Local 27 Agreement, the non-union pay schedules, exempt and non-bargaining unit procedures manual, the second reading of the board policy 5136, the payment for transportation in lieu of. I believe that's all we have for the initial roll call here. Excuse me, and the master planning is separated. Okay, excuse me. Do we have any questions for Mr. Spinner or Mr. Lucky? Gentlemen, did you have anything to add here?
Not unless there are any questions. We do not.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the first 7 items here?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. And lastly, the last item regarding Assistant Superintendent HR and Business is the Master Planning RFQ. Mr. Spinner, Mr. Lucky, did you have anything to add to this item?
Just want to give a brief overview, Matt, if you wouldn't mind.
So RFQ for master planning. We've reached out to several architects and partners around the city and around the area, and I'm sure we'll have more interest. But we will put out an RFQ for qualifications for the role. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back to hold interviews and make a recommendation for that.
And the street outside looks really good too. Matt.
That one does. Yes.
Do we have any questions regarding the RFQ? May I have a motion to approve item 9 under this consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Next on the consent agenda are the assistant superintendent items regarding our educational programs. There is a teacher and learning update. The WCBDD grant, you probably know what that is off the top of your head. Mrs. Martin, Mr. Freeman, the lead service agreement as well. Did you both have anything to add or?
Do have a few things to add. Matt, jump in if you want whenever. We just felt like the work session was so long ago. We've had 2 great PD days that we wanted to kind of highlight to everyone. We had August 14th, our teachers back. First time we've done this before school started. 19 sessions. Yeah, 19 sessions. Pretty excited, overwhelmingly very positive sessions. The next day on the 15th, we had a safety and security from Tim and Matt that they worked through. Again, very positive feedback around that. One of the most exciting parts, I think, for Matt and I was our instructional coaches did 3 sessions. 128 teachers attended the sessions with them. Great feedback from the teaching and learning coaches. We're really excited. At the first Teaching and Learning Council, you'll get to hear if you come to that from the instructional coaches because they're going to do a presentation. So we've worked pretty excited about that, and we've already started seeing quite a bit of sign up with our teachers with them too. So that's really cool. So that was PD. Coming up for our PD now, we only have 2 days the rest of the year. We're going to work on personalized learning, one of our strategic initiatives, and you'll see quite a bit this year around the Power 5 with one of our strategic initiatives. So more to come on that. Talked about instructional coaches, and then one of the days on here is wrong for the teaching and learning. We'll get you new ones out. Peggy pointed out to us that the November date is actually Veterans Day, so we need to move that, which I think Matt already has done. The Warren County Board of Developmental Disabilities grant is a grant that we've had with the special ed department for a few years. This year, that grant will pay for a job coach with our high school MD students, and then a workforce development coordinator with our 7 through 12 students with disabilities, all around workforce initiative. So we're pretty excited about those positions. They'll be in the building either 2 days or 3 days a week. And the grant helps cover most of their salaries. So we're really excited about that grant. And I'll let Matt talk about the lead.
Thanks, Dana. The lead service agreement is just the agreement that we are recommending for Riley O'Grady and her organization Lead Training. Riley works with our internship program to develop our business partnerships. And so this agreement just is compensation for those services.
Take any questions if you have any.
Quick question on the compensation. And is that no matter how many students we have participated, it's that same amount? Okay.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the workforce development coordinator as far as what will they do?
So that is working with our students not in the MD classrooms, 7 through 12, that'll work on their IEP goals around any transition. They do some things in the building. So you'd see like mail, recycling. I think they even do something where they go around and sell stuff, depending what the students want to do that year. Then they also do a few things out of the building. So there's signups to go to different places in the around the district to do work at those places. So that's a little different every year, depending on the businesses that want to sign up. But those coaches coach the kids through that and then work with them as they do it.
Thank you.
So the payments outlined in section 5 of the agreement, would that constitute all the costs involved with this contract?
Service or the
Yes,
grant?
I'm sorry, lead service.
Yes, that just describes the kind of scope of service that Lead Training will be providing to us. So our goal, just had a meeting actually today, met a couple times already this school year, met today, and our goal for next year is to have 60 students that are part of the internship opportunity. So that's a pretty significant increase of the number of students that we have participating right now. So in order for us to be able to meet that goal, we need to have businesses in place that are ready to accept and work with our students.
Thank you.
What is that number right now?
How many students do we have right now? 11.
I'll also add, when we talk about the compensation part of this agreement, we found money that the Warren County Career Center was holding on our behalf that they received from the state of Ohio. They're going to be paying us that money to pay for this agreement. So this is truly a no cost to the district. We were able to find funding for it.
Yeah, and the way we structured the agreement with Riley was to ensure that we could pay, it's a net zero to the district. The service that she's providing, connecting our kids to business opportunities is extremely important. But we did that, we worked with that grant and the Warren County Career Center to ensure that it was a net zero to the district.
Is this something that will help students decide what they want to major in college, or do they want to go immediately to work? Both, neither?
Both. So yes, so it's really set up to provide an opportunity for students to have some kind of really tangible career experience before they leave high school. So whether that be an experience now, I'll speak for one child I know who's going to participate. Starts next
Matt's
Tuesday.
daughter.
My daughter.
Describe that, Matt.
she-
Just, I think it'd be worth describing.
I'll describe that. So she wants to be a nurse, right? There are lots of ways that you can become a registered nurse. So she's decided she wants to go through the BSN pathway, get her bachelor's degree. And so her experience will be in partnership with UC Westchester Hospital. So she's working there. There are actually 3 other students that are placed there as well. So that's just like that's one example. It could be, today we actually brainstormed other career pathways that we want to target, in particular jobs that we know that are in demand, things like logistics, cybersecurity. These are just some topics that we discussed that we don't currently have courses in place for. And this type of experience will really give a taste to students to see, like, okay, yeah, is this something I'm really interested in before I go and invest a lot of time, energy, and money into moving forward with this. So we're really excited about it, and definitely we'll keep you up to date as we move forward with our meetings and keep you updated on how things go.
This may be a question you can't answer tonight, but I'm just thinking forward and for students who have no idea what they want to do after graduation, how in the future are you thinking of helping them?
That's a great question. I can give you a little bit of information. So currently, we do have a district career advising framework that we operate from that gives examples of job exploration activities from kindergarten through high school. So it's old. We last developed and really worked on that plan in 2017. So it's time for a refresh of that. The world has changed a lot since COVID. I'll say that, we know. So lots of different opportunities are out there. So again, had a meeting at the high school with Mr. Griffin, who is kind of chairing the career advising piece at the high school. And we had conversation around just that. How do we help students to get an idea of what they want to do? So there's a variety of things, tools that we can leverage to see what student aptitudes are, gain what their interest areas might be for future careers, and just doing a better job of connecting students to some opportunities. So we're starting to refresh that, and more to come. Again, really, this is a big goal for us is to have a lot of these things in place by the time scheduling happens at the high school. So when we talk about course scheduling and all of that, likely in December or early January, I'll be able to give you I think a big update on that framework as well.
Matt, I'll just add a couple things related to this because it's important. And I know the board's been very engaged into this new concept with the internship course. This year, in order to pilot that, we had students. We had students interested in that. And then we tried to connect the students with a business that they were interested in. That model is probably going to shift a little bit as we're learning. We had 22 students initially sign up. We've had a couple move and then a couple schedule changes take place. And we have 11 students. It's actually a great number, so we can pilot, iron this out. Carrie Snyder is our teacher. She's extremely engaged into this. And she's got an amazing guest speaker this week. If you're interested, at 12:30 on Wednesday and Thursday, you might see somebody you might know.
Who's
But
speaking right now? I don't.
might be just shameless plug. But the reality is we're going to work on finding and connecting businesses and then exposing our students to those opportunities. So it's got to be a reverse for next year. So I think we'll have a little more success doing that. But these guys are working very hard trying to fine tune what that looks like. Miss Snyder will at some point come to the board and a teaching and learning council meeting, and we'll share kind of an update on where we are, what we've learned. But this is, as we prepare our kids for the future, these are the things that we need to be doing. So we're pretty excited about it, but there's growing pains. So
We also did today, just one more item. We did discuss surveying our current juniors. So we're going to send a survey out to those students. We do have a graduation plan document that can help kind of gauge what students are interested in doing. And we'll be able to, over time, look at those trends, so our students telling us based on that early documentation around careers, are they interested in, say, like hotel, tourism, or hospitality? That would be a gap for us. That's just an example of a gap. Or are students interested in architecture? We have some good things in place to kind of lead kids down that type of experience. So the survey will also help guide so that we can better sustain and be ready for these larger numbers that we're hoping to accommodate next school year. So all those great questions.
Very exciting.
With that, may I have a motion to approve these items?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. Next on the consent agenda item are the items presented by the board. It's time for us to appoint our OSBA delegate for the annual business meeting. this November.
We're all looking at you, Deb.
Mrs. Cowan, I feel like you have done an excellent job in this role for the past few years.
Actually, I did it last year.
And
Last year.
And honestly,
You did.
it was brutal, but
wasn't it was.
What?
Oh, well,
But-
last year you, yeah. Yeah.
but they did announce that they're making changes to it because it kind of got carried away with
Yeah, it
some of the
does.
people that were talking. So they're changing the structure of it. So it's not supposed to be as bad as it was last year. That being said, Deb, you want to flip a coin? No, but no, hearing the changes that they made to it since I did it last year, honestly, I'd like to see what the changes would be like.
Sure.
So I could just go ahead and do that again.
That was.
I am perfectly fine with you taking it.
So what's going to happen? It's going to be awesome, and
Yeah,
it's going to be awesome this
alternate
year.
last
Everybody
year?
else next
Okay.
year is going to be like, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I'll say no.
I'll be happy to be the alternate. 'Cause I did it 2 years ago and then John was so kind to
Right.
do it last.
And you
year.
were you alternate last year? Or was,
Yes.
I think you were.
I
I
think
think you
so,
were,
yeah.
that's why it threw me. I'm sorry about that, John. Yeah.
But yes, I'll be happy. to be the alternate. I know 2
Okay.
years ago, it was quite a lot also. There was some big issues on the table.
Yeah, and
So-
there's nothing like that open mic that they set up.
Yes. It's in the line, but all the way down.
And if the changes they say, if they don't go through, I'm out next year.
Gotcha.
But yes, I would be glad to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Skrull. Appreciate that. Any questions? Would anyone else like to enjoy the open mic at the business meeting?
It's like open mic night. I like that.
So do we need a nomination then? Or is it just like, a yes, if he's got
I think
it?
it's just a yes.
Okay, perfect.
It's good.
All right. Next on the agenda are the
Can I ask a question first before we
yes.
move on? I wanted to see if we could get a transportation update from Mr. Lucky.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for asking. First, with the switching to the three-tier transportation, we talked earlier about the $150,000 in savings, but the biggest reason for switching to that's a nice side note for that. But the biggest reason we changed to that was for staffing reasons. So I'll start with just a staffing update. We have 43 routes. We have 41 contracted drivers. Compared to last year, we were 10 short. So it's a massive amount of improvement. We have 2 full-time subs and 3 just regular subs. So that's how we're able to cover those 43 routes. Just for the change in the community, I want to thank, all of our families for managing through the changes in times. I'll say we were, hate to say the word aggressive with our schedule, but we took a lot of feedback from community members and the board on what everyone felt comfortable with start times being, and trying to compress that time as much as we could, which can be very difficult to do without running a route. So thank you for the families that have made those adjustments and figured out childcare and how to get kids on and off buses. So huge deal for everybody. I think moving forward, now that people will start to get a better feel for how that works, the plan will get easier and better for everybody making those plans. We have 13 drivers in training, which is an amazing number of people that were working to get a CDL. 6 of them already have CDLs. So we're continuing to do job fairs, keep people on to bolster our bench, because you're going to have turnover in all positions, but in those transportation roles, we'll continue to deal with that. A couple things that are more fun than usual here for us right now is the amount of construction. So we all dealt with it across the street, but the bridge being closed that we've dealt with, teamed up with the hospital construction, has presented some challenges for us. We've communicated at great length from the beginning of all the projects to construction companies of this is what it looks like when school's going on here. And it's really hard to imagine until you're trying to fill a truck with dirt during school. So they're working with us in a great way. We're all trying to work around each other to get this done as fast as we can. But when Columbia Road is where your buses exit the high school in tier 1 to start tier 2 and to get on to tier 3, unless they're moving, it's a trickle around effect. So we're continuing to massage the routes to make sure that we're getting kids to school on time. We've got a couple routes that we're still working on diligently and trying to communicate with families of new bus times, maybe new stops, maybe new bus numbers, shifting routes around to try to get kids home in a timely fashion, as well as get them to school ready to go. So it's been great to see the amount of drivers we have in the pool. Great to start the year with a whole lot less than 10 short. And then just working through the normal deals. I'll just say this, not to sugarcoat it, but no matter if there was construction or not, no matter if we switched to 3-tier or not, the first 2 weeks of school, we're going to be working through routes, working through stops, training kids on new, getting on a bus to get off a bus, what they need to do, working with our new kindergartners, making sure parents are at stops safely to pick those kindergartners up. So it just takes everybody a little bit of time to get that routine down. So as this week continues on into next week, we'll keep fine tuning that and communicating with folks to get those times even closer. Just a couple of routes that we're really working with, which I'm very excited about.
Thank you. And thank you to the bus drivers, because I know last week was probably very hard on them, especially with the heat. That did not
Yes.
help the situation.
I
Yeah.
want, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Susan.
Mrs. Phil.
No.
I was just gonna ask, do we still have, is the bridge still on time? Did I not have asked that? Or-
You're fine to ask it. Plus or minus a month, but I'd say the beginning of 2024-ish.
Gotcha.
That bridge will be open. It'll be a huge relief for the traffic on Columbia Road getting into the high school. So if you think about, we really have 3 ways to get in over there. And when one of them shut down and forces everybody into the other, Columbia Road is working north, is stacked up pretty deep.
Thanks, Mr. Lott.
Mhm.
Mrs. Phillips.
I was just wanting to bring up the board statement about public participation and the board rules for public participation. If everyone looked at that,
Yes.
if we want to go with the change that more closely mirrors our policy.
Yes, absolutely.
I think so.
I think we should have that set for September. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great.
Have any other items? All right. I apologize, Mr. Crawford, jumped the gun there. Next on the agenda are the legislative updates from Mr. Skrull.
Yeah, just a few items I wanted to touch on today. So there was one bill that Governor DeWine signed, and that was Senate Bill 43, which modifies the homestead exemption for the surviving spouse of a disabled veteran that goes into effect this fall. And then one thing that's exciting is Governor DeWine, he announced the new teacher apprenticeship program. So what that does is it looks to address the teacher shortage we have in Ohio, where others that are currently in the schools might be able to transition into teaching through an apprenticeship program. But he's going to be talking more about that here this fall. And then one thing I don't have on here, and this regards the safety of our students with the bus accident that happened last week. I know Governor DeWine is looking at bus safety for our children. So just wanted to get that on everyone's radar. I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks.
Any questions for Mr. Skrull? All right, next on the agenda is Student Achievement Liaison Update. Mrs. Phillips.
I went a little different route this time, so you don't have to listen to me quite as much. But if we look at the continuous growth and development of students, that begins on the very first day of school. So what do we look for? You'll get to see some photographs, and I want you to pay special attention to what's happening, not only on the faces of the students and the adults, but also what else do you see? Can you find examples of positive culture, friendships, caring for one another, building relationships in the welcoming environment? And I want you to look for teachers and students that are communicating, problem solving, critically thinking, learning, and helping one another. So from preschool to high school, we're seeing that we're providing the tools needed for students to grow, thrive, and succeed. And it all starts from the top down and from the bottom up.
Thank you.
It's great. That was
Sure.
great, Mrs. Phillips. You can,
And thanks to all of the building principals for helping with providing many, many, many of the pictures of the first week of school.
absolutely. Thank you for that,
Nicely
Mrs.
done.
Phillips.
Nicely.
Any questions for Mrs. Phillips? All right, with that, may I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I will make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned. Hope everyone has a pleasant evening.